Good morning. The first song we'd like to offer this morning is written by Swami Kriyananda entitled Blessed the Life.
Good morning. Our readings are taken from Rays of the One Light, the weekly commentaries in the Bible and Bhagavad Gita by Swami Kriyananda. This week is, How Should We Meet Our Tests? Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. Last week, we considered Satan's temptation of John in the wilderness. It was Jesus. I'm sure John had his tests too, I'm sure about that. But not last week. Last week, we considered Satan's temptation of Jesus in the wilderness after his baptism by John. We discussed the question, does Satan exist? All of us experience temptation of one kind or another in our lives. Some of us frequently, others only occasionally. Whether temptation comes to us from our own subconscious or from outside ourselves is secondary to the fact that it does come and that we must deal with it. More important, then, is the question how to deal with it. In fact, how to deal with tests of any kind. Martin Luther flung an ink pot at the devil who had appeared to test him. A dark stain on the wall of Luther's cell is pointed out to tourists in support of this story. Unfortunately, our trials are not often so summarily dismissed. As a fellow monk once said to Swami Kriyananda, speaking of Satan, "If only I could get my hands on him." Jesus, during his temptations in the wilderness, overcame them and thereby set an example for all time by clinging the more determinedly to God. As Paramahansa Yogananda used to say, darkness cannot be driven out of a room with a stick. Once you turn the light on, however, the darkness will vanish as though it had never been. Jesus manifested this principle. The Bible tells us, therefore, that at last the devil leaveth him, and behold, angels came and ministered unto him. In the Bhagavad Gita, the point is clarified further by the added explanation that there are three qualities in human nature: sattvic, or spiritually elevating; rajasic, or ego-activating; and tamasic, or spiritually darkening. It is this triune aspect of human nature that the third chapter refers to with the words, "As fire is hidden by smoke, as a mirror is dulled by rust, and as an embryo is enclosed in the womb, so is the indwelling self enveloped by desire." Yogananda explained that each of these examples describes one of the qualities or gunas. Sattva guna, that which elevates our consciousness, can be freed of any identity with ego by a little puff of meditation and right affirmation. Rajoguna, which embroils the ego in restless activity, can be worked off with a little more and a little longer effort. Tamoguna, embracing as it does such mental states as laziness and stupidity, can only be outgrown in time, since it inhibits even the desire for self-improvement. The example Jesus gave us was intended more for those in whom sattva guna is predominant. But if you yourself find elements in your consciousness that resist even the effort to cling to God in prayer and meditation, don't despair. Patience, as it has well been said, is the fastest path to God. As long as your efforts take you steadfastly in the right direction, you will come out right in time. Remember Yogananda's words, "A saint is a sinner who never gave up." If, however, your nature impels you, even against your will, to move in the wrong direction, toward egoic desires and away from God, strive at least to detach yourself mentally from your wrong actions, which are induced by habit. The time will come when their own stored-up energy will tire and diminish. At that time, if you have not contributed to that energy by your consenting will, you will find it possible at last to redirect your energies more constructively. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om.
Welcome, everyone. So, my name is Hanuman, and this is my wife and best friend, Mari, and we're accompanied by Lorna and Bharati as our blessers. So, this was a perfect reading because if you Sattva guna, Tamo guna, Rajo all these gunas, I mean, there's a few of you in there and out there that may not even quite understand what in the heck are these people talking about. Well, if you really want to know, starting next week or next month, soon we have the Raja Yoga coming up in September, and it's a 14-week course on yoga. So whether or not you've ever taken the Raja Yoga class, which I've taught and taken dozens of times, and I still get a lot out of it, I would really suggest that you take the time and join us for that opportunity. So, let's see, I got so many things to talk to you about today. I just don't know where to start. I guess, first of all, we're talking about how to meet our tests. But also we want to talk about, why? Why put out that effort? I could be on a beach, surfing, enjoying the sun, having a great time, And, life could be pretty darn good until I got skin cancer, I guess. But there is another reason why we want to learn these things. And it comes from Whispers from Eternity, and it also is the first two stanzas of the poem Samadhi by Paramahansa Yogananda. Vanished the veils of light and shade, lifted every vapor of sorrow, sailed away all dawns of fleeting joy. Gone the dim sensory mirage. Love, hate, health, disease, life, death, perished these false shadows on the screen of duality. Waves of laughter, scythes of sarcasm, melancholic whirlpools melting in the vast sea of bliss. The storm of Maya stilled. That's where I want to be. So how do we get there? Maya, by the way, is delusion. Well, we get there. We don't have any choice, by the way. You do understand that, right? I mean, the battle goes on every day. Every day there's going to be tests. There's going to be lessons to learn. We're living in a sea of duality. So, especially yoga wants or offers us a path towards the light, a way out of the delusion. But first we have to understand, in fact, we really are in delusion. Then we have to accept the fact that it's not as easy as we think. And then we have to have the humility to be okay with ourselves when we fail, when we try to move above all habits, all desires, all passions, and to live a life that is, I won't even say pleasing to God, although that is a good thing to do, but it's what makes us happy. And that is pleasing to God. Because God exists within us. We are part of the divine, correct? So we meet our tests. First thing we have to do in the morning is what? Get out of bed. Now that's easy for some. I mean, some of you people are probably toasts and some of you are potatoes, but I used to be a toast. I'm beginning to feel much more like a roasted potato. But the tests begin getting up. Then there's the loss of things. First of all, we start to lose some of our memory. Maybe we're going to lose a loved one. Maybe we're going to lose our health. Maybe we're going to lose our wealth. Maybe we're going to lose our position. It seems that we come into this world beginning with loss. We have lost our memory of what pure, unconditional love feels like. We have lost the knowing that we are all one in the same bubble of love. We actually spend most of our life trying to remember what we did lose when we first shot down into the womb of another being in order to fulfill this destiny of becoming one with that which we just left. How did that happen? Swami says to us, when we ask the question, what is it that keeps us here? Two things. One is desire, and one is remorse. We have a desire for things that perhaps we didn't get in this lifetime. So there's still these lingering desires. Then there's the remorse of, well, maybe we didn't do as good as we could have. And so we feel a little guilty about that. That'll get you back here for sure. So let's see what we can do to move through those things. First of all, we want to have this deeper communion with life, with love, with what we call God, with Spirit. And this really takes discipline, and it takes courage. There's a quote from Ambrose Hollingsworth. Anybody know who he was? I think he was in Quicksilver, the rock group. Half of you don't even know who that is, maybe more. Anyway, he did say this about courage. Courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the judgment that something else is more important than one's fear. Mari and I recently went on a family camp out of about 48 people. And within this group of people, there is an 11-year-old grandnephew. His name is Rowan. And he is a sweet kid. Not that I'm prejudiced or anything, but he is. And I'm walking down, this is a campsite that has a bunch of tents and a bunch of those RVs, and it also has one of those camp stores that you buy all your adult and children beverages. And the kids were outside, and they were filling Rowan's hoodie with rocks. And then somebody had the great idea, well, let's just pull it over his head. And I saw this and said, what are you doing? Quit that. And I helped Rowan get the rocks off and stuff. And Rowan was smiling. He says, oh, it's okay. Well, I made sure his dad found out about this. He says, it's okay. You know what? His mother also smiles when there's difficult times. She's got her own voice now. But this is a child trying to become one with his peers, trying to be accepted. He hasn't yet found his own integrity, his own strength. Yet he's only 11 years old. He's learning that. Many of us, take longer than 11 years to find our own integrity. And when I use the word integrity, I mean that centeredness, that oneness, that part within us that says, I am connected to something greater than myself. These are the values that I live by. And to the extent that I can move through this world and be a channel for good, that's what I'm going to do with my life. No matter what I do for a living, no matter what I do otherwise, I'm going to live with that integrity within. So our 11-year-old Rowan, we decide the next day we go on a hike, and we're going to go find a swimming hole. So it's quite a hike, and we do get to the swimming hole, and there's this 20-foot boulder. And of course, all the kids are scampering up, and many of the adults are scampering up. I am not scampering up. I've got my camera, but so I can document. And so Rowan's up there, and people are jumping off and having a great time. And Rowan comes to the edge of the boulder, and he goes. And of course, this goes on for a half an hour, literally. And thank God the people that were there were all very supportive of him. One of his, I think it was a cousin, an older adult, came up and sat next to him. Don't you feel that? And even the people that didn't even know him were trying to help him in their own ways of just supporting him in this act. And one of the kids that, was filling his hood full of rocks and putting it over his head, he was jumping off this thing and stuff too. Well, he started talking to Rowan a little bit, because he is a good friend of his. He just doesn't, he's got a learning process too. So anyway, at some point in time, really, this is over a half an hour long. So he is literally up there for a half an hour doing this. And by God, I had the camera going off and on, off and on, off and on. And the second I turned the camera off and yay! I missed it. He actually did it. And I go up to Rowan later afterwards and I said, what changed? What changed that you decided to jump? And he said, I don't know. I just wanted to jump, so I jumped. He overcame that fear because he had the desire to jump. He really wanted to jump. He also had the support of a lot of people there. I didn't hear any negative energy from anyone. And many of those people were strangers. I mean, we weren't the only ones there. It's exactly how you wish life was like for all of us every day of our life. That when somebody's there on the edge and you know that they're trying their best, that there's going to be somebody there to give them support and love. And if he had decided not to jump, that same support would be there. That he had the courage, and I would say that to him, you had the courage to try. You had the courage to get up there. And that's a big step. So we see that to overcome our fears is part of how we meet our tests. Swami Kriyananda says, to meet your life's tests, say yes to life. Now that's a very interesting phrase. Because he's not just saying, let's say yes to life when it's great. He's saying, let's say yes to life when it's hard. Let's say yes to life when things get difficult. In fact, Duke Ellington said something to the effect, when life presents you with a challenge, it's your opportunity to do your best. African American, very well known in the 30s, 40s. I am sure he's got more than one story of difficult times in that field, in that time in America. But he said, when you have those difficulties, it's your best chance, best time to do your best. I got a letter from a friend recently, and this friend has brain cancer. And I just want to share with you what he had to say. A challenge that is omnipresent in this illness is the trap of self-centered thinking. It is a pattern that brings me more suffering. Getting caught up in woe is me is so easy. And yet it is true that my illness has a major impact on my wife and so many others. When I get stuck in this mindset of me, 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 it makes life more difficult for me and the people I love. A friend reminded me that there are so many people suffering, that this is part and parcel to the human condition. And when I remember this, there is more space. The concern for others' suffering opens the heart, allows my circumstance to join in theirs, into the incredible expanse of life. Old age, illness, and death are all part in the fabric. I shouldn't be surprised. When we can see others, when we can get a broader perspective, I mean, usually most of our suffering happens when we're thinking about ourselves. Really, that's the biggest part. And when we can get outside of ourselves and see, well, you know what? There's hundreds, maybe thousands, maybe millions of other people that are experiencing the same thing as me right now. They may have anxiety. They may have ill health. They may have mental and emotional problems. They may have family problems. Who knows? But you know that there isn't anybody among us who's not touched by that in some way. And so when we can just expand beyond our own reality, and we're just talking about the reality of human life, but when we can expand beyond even that into spiritual realities, we realize that if we put things into perspective, this is a test. It's only a test. We're going to get through this. And that's the important thing to remember too, is that there is nothing that is forever. Things change. This will change. Everything will change. In this week's Touch of Light, Swami Jyotish talks about how we can meet our tests. How perfect it was right there. To be completely even-minded and cheerful. So that's a discipline in itself, to be even-minded and cheerful. And again, that's when I say it's a discipline, it's a lifelong discipline. People often say, well, you guys, you're just not real. You're just not facing reality. Well, you try being even-minded and cheerful. When you're talking to somebody like that. So we have to learn, don't we? So it's a discipline. He also talks about the techniques of pranayama, hung sa, and the energization exercises. Energization exercises are Yogananda's contribution to yoga on how to draw energy, cosmic energy, into the body and use it. And so it's a great thing for if you have health issues, if you're going into a meeting and you know it's going to be a tough one, doing a couple of double breaths, attitude, affirmations. We've got great affirmations. Hung sa, when you're feeling depressed or lonely, just to bring you back to hung sa means I am spirit. Just affirming that with the breath, I am spirit. All these fantastic ways in which we can, in fact, meet all of our tests. David Crosby of Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Anybody ever see them? Yeah, we got a couple out there. Okay. Well, he was first with the Byrds. Did you know that? At the age of 23, he joined the band, the Byrds, and the next year, the band made Bob Dylan famous with his first hit song, Mr. Tambourine Man. He went on to go to Woodstock, win Grammys. His whole life has been one of music. He's got 8 stints in his heart. I don't even know if that's possible. Why they didn't do open heart surgery on him, I have no idea. But 8 stents, that's all these little tubes in these very small arteries. He also got a liver transplant. So the guy's 77 years old, and he's got a body that's, kind of patched together with duct tape and bubble gum, So he says, I've got a little bit of life left, maybe 2 weeks, maybe 10 years. What do I do with it? The only thing I can do is music. So what is it that you can do? What is the one thing that you can do, that you came into this life to do? It's staring you right in the face. If we say yes to life, if we say, I'm going to do this because it's in front of me to do, then just like the saints, when you take a step forward, there'll be a lotus petal there. You'll notice I don't have the lotus petal there, so I have to go down. Okay. But the point is that with each and every moment of our lives, with alertness, we are listening to what is the next thing I'm supposed to do. We don't have to really do anything else, because if we give our life to Spirit, Spirit will guide us exactly where you're supposed to go this lifetime. I'd like to end with a poem that Maury's going to read for us.
Is it in here?
Yeah, maybe it's there.
This is called The Righteous Battle. It's by Yogananda. He wrote it in January of 1928. I never understood why for doing good Christ was crucified. For giving love he met great hate. For giving life, death he met. I ne'er dreamt for doing good he could be crucified. He had no foes, but could not help if some did think they had to be his foes. Some die for fame, some die for lust, some die for golden dust, but all must die. Then why not die as Jesus did? Die, oh, never to die again. To cure dark hate with golden love, he died to live again. To hate those who hate us, to love those who love us, is the common mortal way. But to love those who love us not is by immortals sought. Those who hated and fought unworthily died. Jesus died for love. He lives in human hearts, human-hearted shrines forever. Elder brothers who culture love from divine mother above, deal lovingly with revengeful younger brothers steeped in error, who seek fault where no fault is. Deal lovingly, but fight the righteous battle, with love in heart to shatter their error apart. But one must master love before he can battle righteously. Battle for truth, battle with love, not for victory, not for shaming others, but to show that truth must reign in spite of all.
Meet your test with courage, kindness, and integrity. Be a beacon of light, of love, and of joy in this world of delusion and uncertainty.
The next song we'd like to offer is also written by Swami Kriyananda, entitled Guide Me, Lord. Guide me, Lord, throughout this day, in all I do, in all I say. Tell me when I go astray, hold me in thy light.
Help me see that happiness comes not with wanting more but less. Teach me all my friends to bless, hold them in thy light. Guide me, Lord, throughout this day, in all I do, in all I say. say. Tell me when I go astray. Hold me in thy light. Help me see that happiness comes not with wanting more but less. Teach me, oh my friends, to bless. Hold them in thy light. Hold them in thy light.
Good morning. We're getting close to September, and September is going to be filled with many new classes and activities here, and we are very much looking forward to that, but we have another week of August left, and there's more happening here this coming week as well. We have, of course, our drop-in yoga classes on Wednesday and on Saturday. And this coming Saturday, we are also going to be celebrating the anniversary of Ananda House. And they will have an open house from 2 to 4 out in the Laurelwood Valley. If you have an opportunity, it'll be a wonderful opportunity to have satsang with each other and to celebrate what they are doing out there with elder care. Hanuman put in a pretty good plug for the Raja program, and I appreciate that. And I was thinking, this topic this morning about, how do we meet our tests? In a way, the Raja class is all about that, all 14 weeks, just ways in which we can prepare ourselves for what we face in life every day, all the different challenges. It's a wonderful course. The foundation of our teachings here, yoga as a lifestyle, as a way of life. And if you have taken it before, I do encourage you to take it again. If the finances are in any way an issue, talk to me, we'll work it out. And if you're new, by all means, I hope you have the opportunity to join us. We start on Tuesday, September the 10th, and we'll go for a couple of months, mostly on Tuesdays and on a couple of Saturdays also. And I think that's it.